Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can follow me on Instagram. My name over there is also Skeindeer, and you can find me as a designer on Ravelry under the name Skeindeer Knits. And of course the Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits is the best place to be if you are taking part in any of my knit-alongs, if you want to be there for any future giveaways, if you need help with my patterns, if you have questions you need answered. It's the best place to be. It is the best place to get in touch with me, and I just really like it and would recommend it. So yeah, welcome to this podcast. I am drinking off my crazy yarn lady mug because it just seemed very appropriate, you know. So I'm just going to jump straight into the admin. I am the hostess of 2 knit-alongs. I was also the hostess of the Skeindeer sock-along, but that has come to an end at the end of August. However, I am sorry I have not drawn the winners of that knit-along yet. The reason being is that I've only had 1 week since coming back from Germany on a roller coaster of a trip that I talked about in the last episode. And I will be going away again to Scotland the coming weekend. And on top of that, I am actually going back to being a student this week. Just for a couple of days. It's just for a small module that I need to take to qualify to be a lecturer. So long story short, I just don't have time to do it properly. I want to do it properly during the winters, having the prizes organised, all that stuff. And I will be doing that once things are a little bit relaxed around here. So just hang in there, those of you who entered your finished socks. They were amazing. Thank you so much for taking part. I've had so much fun with it. It's great seeing all the different colour choices you've done. As if seeing, you know, my colourwork mittens being knitted up quite frequently isn't rewarding enough, I somehow found it more rewarding seeing the socks knitted up, because there's a lot more stuff going on there sometimes. There are often more colours just because of the anatomy of the socks versus the mitten, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. And even if you're late for the knit along, I mean, I still encourage you to knit colourwork socks because colourwork socks are a lot of fun. But yeah, prizes and winners will be announced later on. So the knit-alongs I am hosting the year-long knit-along, where we aim to make 6 pairs of colourwork mittens for the duration of 2018. These do not have to be my designs, but they have to be colourwork, and I do ask that they are, you know, fairly substantial. I covered this at the beginning of the announcing of the knit-along. Like, I haven't put in any limits or boundaries, like saying, oh, they have to be that weight or they have to have this many percentages of colourwork. But they should be primarily colour work, and I would appreciate if they weren't all, you know, just quick heavyweight so that you're just speeding through the knit along, because that would just defy the point of the cal. But I haven't seen anyone do that, so I just thought it would be good to have a reminder, because it's been a while since I mentioned that. So no strict rules, it's just common sense. And yeah, I'm loving this knit along. It is going to come to an end at the end of the year, as is the Selby Mitten Club number 2. So the second Selby Mitten Club is surely a good way for you to reach your goal of 6 colourwork mittens a year, because the club includes 4, though arguably 5 colourwork mittens if we also count the bonus pattern that came out with the launch. So if you knit all pairs, you will really only have to find 1 other pair of colourwork mittens to do to qualify for the year-long knit-along. And if anyone's wondering, I am back on the tea binge. I've been on a coffee binge for about a year or 2. And it didn't quite jive with my anxiety. Like, I don't believe I have anxiety because of it, or that it will go away without it. But it just wasn't really helping, you know. So I'm back on the tea. It is black tea just because I'm transitioning. And it's Davies tea, which I can't get in the UK, which I probably should save up a little bit, but now I'm just binging it. And this is Santa's secret, because it is the best tea all year around. And I'm knitting from my crazy yarn lady mug, as I showed you earlier. This is from Strikkezilla, who is a knitting designer and various knitting accessory maker in Norway. So that was all for my knit-alongs, but I will be talking a little bit more about the Selby Mitten Club, because since the last episode I have launched the first proper, like, pattern. I mean, sure, these were a proper pattern, but they were like kind of a bonus pattern to just kick things off, to make people who were new to this more comfortable with colourwork mitten knitting. These are the smaller size of the 2 that I've offered. I would prefer the larger size for me, because These are a bit of a snug fit, as you can see, but some people like snug fits. I have included both. But we weren't going to talk about that. We were going to talk about the first secret pattern, the subscription pattern that has come out, the September mittens, that I have chosen to call Evia. And this is Evia. This is what they look like, and I know it's a little bit risky, but I think these are my favorites from this club, and they've already come out, so it's all downhill from here. No, they're all, the other ones are pretty good as well, I think, I hope, you know, not to toot my own horn, but I quite like them. But these are Evia. The name actually comes from two farms that are quite old in Særbu. There is Stor Evia and there's Lich Evia. These are completely unrelated, but it just means big and small Evia. They were different farms, they're quite old, go back to like the 1500s. But the word Evia actually refers to a part of a river, a kind of diverting part that is just more still and often more shallow, and people use them to float logs and that kind of thing, but also it's just really good to go have a swim in it. So I just thought that's a nice name. I like the sound of it, and there we are. These are knitted in Rauma 3-ply Strikkegarn. It's their DK weight, arguably sport weight. I would say it leans perhaps more towards sport than worsted, but it's quite woolly, so you know, it's flexible. It will work for the gauges suggested in the patterns. And I would actually say, if you aren't happy with either size, not that anyone haven't been, but if you aren't, you can just knit at different gauges. You can experiment with gauge here. If you get the gauges kind of suggested are 22 or 24 stitches, but if you want to do even bigger and you do 20, or even small and do 26, I'm just using even numbers here, that would work fine, and I think this yarn could accommodate that easily. So just to show off that a little bit, if you can't get hold of this yarn, which I do believe you can, because it's both available, I believe, in the Woolly Thistle in America and isolda.com in Europe, and they ship worldwide. But if you can't get it, I have made a bundle on Ravelry called the 7 Mitten Bundle that we also used last year, and it suggests a variety of yarns. But I will say I prefer this one. But Navia Troyer is a pretty close second, and I also really love Susan Crawford's Excelana DK. And she has whispered that she has come up with more colours for that yarn, so I would definitely keep my eyes peeled for that. We have been in talks about combinations of these mittens and that yarn, but that's all I'm gonna say for now. But that's very exciting. And yeah, this is the back side of Evia. Gosh, I really love these. I should have saved them for last, but I don't know, I wanted to kick things off with a bang, I really did. So I've really done my best to do close-ups of the gusset this time, because really there are only two types of questions I get, well, three arguably questions I usually get with my mittens that I have really done my best to clarify in the pattern. I don't think there's any way to clarify it more, but one of them is I don't get the gusset. What are the grey areas outside the gusset on the chart? And I have to tell people, like, there's nothing there. There's no stitch. You literally skip it. It says the pattern. They're like, I don't get that. So I tell them, look up a photo, like in projects or something, of the gusset and see how does it look, and then it makes sense to them. So this time I have gone through great efforts to produce that myself, so that it should be a bit more intuitive, because it's quite abstract sometimes looking at a chart. Even though it is a colourwork chart that represents the mittens fairly clearly, it's not as 3D, and I think this helps people understand it. The other two questions I usually get is the decreases, and I think often people are sat up a bit late and they skim read it, because very often the next day they say, oh, it's fine, I figured it out after a night's sleep. And that is just working out how the decreases work, because you are essentially shifting a stitch marker one way so that you can overlap the last stitches of the round with the first stitch of the next in SSK stitch, which isn't particularly revolutionary, but I think people think it's more involved than it is, and once people try the instructions, it actually works out very easily. You would almost be surprised how easy it actually is. So I would just recommend to trust the pattern. Just do what it says. You don't have to understand everything, as long as you understand what it tells you to do rather than what it will become. And the last question I usually get is about picking up stitches for the thumb, and I've been brutally honest in the pattern there. There is no exact science. It's fiddly. You just try your best to pick up in the backwards loop cast on here. It It may not be pretty, like it's not perfect here either. This is pretty much the best you can do. And you know what? Big deal. It's going to be hidden in here where nobody's going to see it. So I wouldn't worry too much. And if you can't close up the gaps here, again, like I say in the pattern, just get some scrap yarn later. And you're actually going to have a tail of scrap yarn from where you picked up the thumbs in the first place. So it's really you're doing it right. That's what I'm trying to say. There isn't any more precise manner of it. I think my pattern's actually almost revolutionary precise in the thumb pickup, because most patterns I've come across for colourwork mittens kind of gloss over it a little bit and just like hope that you're gonna figure it out, especially the ones that tell you to leave in a scrap yarn, to knit in the scrap yarn rather than putting the stitches on hold and casting on over the way I do. They will really not tell you much of how to do that, because suddenly you have changed the direction of your colourwork and everything's up in the air and it's kind of like, oh. So I've really gone through great efforts to make this as precise as can be, and more precise than that I don't think you can get it, and I don't think you need it, and I see people all the time doing great. But yeah, Mitten Club has officially now kicked off. It's not just the bonus pattern anymore, we actually have the first pattern out there. And I am excited. Oh, I need to control myself. But yeah, I did the photo shoot actually in Oslo. You can't tell by looking at the photos or anything, but I know, and that's special to me. So these I took photos of in a coffee shop in London. These I took photos of in a food market in Oslo. And I'm gonna like try to do that kind of for myself as I travel this autumn. So I'm hoping to photograph the October mittens while I am in Scotland. I am hoping to photograph the November mittens while I am in Norway, which I will get back to in a bit. And the December mittens, I guess we'll see where I am at that point in time. There might be some Norway again, because I'm going possibly back twice before Christmas. We'll see, we'll see. It's all a little bit up in the air right now. More on that in a bit. But just to wrap up the club chatter, there are 2 bundles in my Ravelry group. There's one for the 4-ply yarns and there's one for the DK weight yarns, because they are really the 2 types of yarns that you need. I've said that there's like a sport weight mitten and a fingering weight mittens, but if you use the recommended yarns you can use either. I would be happy to use Usk or Finul for both. So, but for the DK weight ones, they're pretty much the same as far as yarn is concerned. There's also a chatter thread in the group where you can get help, where people help each other out and I pitch in and help, and it's all really good, and it's all linked below. Now I am, like I said, going away next week. I am going to Perth Festival of Yarn, which I have talked about earlier. Last time I checked, I think there is one last place in my class. If you do want to join in there, I recommend jumping on that very quickly, because there's just one left. Unless they're all sold out by now, I'm not sure. I'm also going to be in the podcast lounge, so I look forward to see you there. And please remember, that is why I am there. I do sometimes get messages like after things like Edinburgh Yarn Festival, where I've also been invited to the podcast lounge, like, oh, I didn't want to disrupt you or whatever. And I'm like, really? That's why they let me come for free, because it makes you guys come and say hi to me. So really, that's why I'm there. So if I am weirdly awkward and inapproachable, that's on me. So I'll see you there. And I am also going to go to Edinburgh for just 2 days afterwards. I'm going to pop in on Monday and I'm going to leave on Wednesday morning. I don't have very concrete plans, but I am really hoping, and I believe this will happen, that I will visit the Isolde studio and hopefully film a little bit for the podcast. I have asked and had it confirmed, so it's all looking like it's going to happen, and it makes me very excited. But I do want to talk about Bergen Knitting Festival as well. I have just booked my flight tickets and it's finally going to happen. So my travel plans, don't worry, we'll get into the knitting a bit, but this is knitting related too. My travel plans are going up on the 21st to Norway. I'm going to be in Trondheim for a week to babysit my dogs, which I haven't seen since February. I've never been without my babies for that long. My mom's going away and she needs someone to look after the dogs, and instead of taking them to a kennel and paying them, she'd rather pay for my flight tickets and have me be home, and that means I can go to Bergen for free. So I don't have to pay for my flight, and that's pretty much the only way I could go, which is why I haven't really been able to announce with 100% certainty that I will be there. But now I can tell you with 100% certainty that I will be there, and I look forward to see you So yes, I will be in Trondheim for a week. It's mainly to be dog babysitters, but I do hope there will be some knitting shenanigans happening, that if any of you guys who I know from Trondheim have a knitting meetup or anything, then, you know, might see you there. I will be a bit tied up with the dogs. They do need walks 3 times a day and that kind of thing, but I hope I can do a bit of something. I don't know, we'll see what happens. I haven't planned this thing. And then I'm heading straight to Bergen Knitting Festival for the last weekend of September, and it's all looking like it's going to work out really well. The first day that I land, I will be heading with the bus up to the Hillesvåg Mill. So I've timed it so that I will be there in time. It should all be fine. And I love that mill. I refer to that mill as my fiance, because really I love it so much. I could marry it. It's just fabulous. It has all my favorite yarns in it. And yes, I do know that it will be at the festival, and the yarn is becoming more and more available to me, both internationally and in Trondheim. But being at the mill is a whole other story. And yes, I know I bought a fair bit last year that I haven't even knitted up. But it's Hillesvåg, and I'm gonna try my best not to shop until I drop, but you know how it is. So yes, I look forward to being there tons. It was so good last year. And that is where the festival will actually kick off. It's not the festival location, but things will kind of start there as well. And I'm really excited that there's going to be a fashion show. There is a book coming out called Ruter og Lys, and it does seem to be right up my alley. It's quite a sort of modern take on Norwegian traditional colorwork knitting. As far as I'm aware, only in Norwegian as of now, but we'll see what happens in time. Anyway, they want to send me a review copy, so I will be talking about that book more when I know more and I've seen it in person. But I am excited about that, and I look forward to show you. And I look forward to seeing the actual fashion show with the knitted items. And there will also be a concert by the band Lysning, which is a band that a friend of mine is a member of, so that's really cool. I've actually never heard them play. So yeah, I'm just gonna have so much fun. And you know, when I was in Oslo just now, all every knitter was talking about was Bergen Knitting Festival. I think it's like the biggest Norwegian highlight of the year. Like, there are a number of other knitting festivals as well. There will be 2 in my local area, and I think I might be able to attend one. I don't think I can do Mitten this year. I haven't been before, and I would love to go this year. Again, it's like, how many times can I afford and take time to fly home, really? And so yeah, Bergen does seem to be really taking off this year, and I'm very excited about the stuff that's going to happen. And yeah, there's gonna be, I made some notes of all the things I'm excited about, because there are that many things. So Saturday, Sjølingstad Ullvarefabrikk will have a talk. I don't know if you know about them, but they are a museum in southern Norway, and they make yarn, and I've always wanted to try their yarns. I hope they will bring some, because I would probably buy it if they do. And there will be a market, of course. And some vendors I am excited to see is, of course, Hillesvåg, because why wouldn't I? NinaPetrina and Værbitt will be there, and they're both known to dye on Norwegian yarn, the kind of yarn that I talk about all the time. And you can get it variegated and speckled, and I am very excited to see that. There will also be, you know, Bladet Garn, the Norwegian magazine I've shown you quite a few times. There will be Plystre, you know, the knitting bags that I've been raving about, that I have both as a rucksack, a project bag and a shoulder bag. And Garnsurr will be there. They dye with refugee women as a part of teaching them Norwegian language and Norwegian love of yarn, apparently. And there is Strikkezilla, who, you know, is the maker behind this mug, so you should be able to find a mug there as well, I suppose. I would guess. And Knitography will be there, and I assume we have a lot of shared followers, so you're probably excited to hear that as well. You know, Patricia of Knitography, who has made these amazing threaded blockers for mittens and socks, and she's now getting into yarn production. She's getting the Norwegian Trendersew. I believe she's had them for a while now, and she's going to be vending there, which is so cool. And I look forward to see Patricia again, because I haven't seen her since Edinburgh. And yeah, that is all really exciting. I know there's just lots of people I look forward to see there. And guys, if you didn't say hi last year, say hi this year, because I am way too awkward to walk up to anyone and say hi. So it's all on you. I'm terrible, I'm sorry. Now finally we can get into some knitting things. That was just some plans and some admin and a lot of things that I'm excited to tell you about. But yes, let's cover the elephant in the room. I am wearing a finished object that we actually haven't seen since I cast it on mid-May. It doesn't have buttons because it doesn't have buttons. So I just attached it with the interchangeable needle through the upper buttonhole. This is Sans Serif by Elizabeth Dorothy, and I'm going to try to move a bit away from the camera, maybe stand up so you can see it. It is not my size, so it will look a bit snug if it fits just about, but it's not meant to be my size, it's meant to be my grandmother's size. But it did grow a surprising amount in wash, so you can see here I can't squeeze into it, but it's like it's got negative ease for me, but for my grandmother it will hopefully have a bit of positive ease because she's shrunk a bit. So there we go. This is in Malabrigo. I have completely forgotten the colorway, but this is a pretty distinct colorway of there, so you should be able to recognize it as soon as you see it. Heavily variegated. I did definitely stripe the different skeins because otherwise we would have had some pooling galore happening here. You can see on the sleeves there are some very different skeins going on. They're all the same colorway, but there we are. There was one of the colors that was quite a lot more blue than the others, so I made sure to put that in the sleeves, which is kind of why they have a bit of a blue thing to them. I thought the sleeves were going to be a catastrophe several times. There was a time where I knitted them, I knitted one and it was super snug and the decreases were done already here and I knew something was wrong. So I frogged that and knitted it again, and I did use half a needle size larger from here to down here, which means you can see there's a tighter gauge happening up here than further down. It's not even a subtle difference, it's quite a remarkable difference from these two areas. But I didn't want to do the shoulder caps again. I know my grandmother's got quite narrow shoulders and will like the sleeves to be looser, so this made sense to me. I was super worried it was going to be too tight across the back, but it does seem to be actually just right. So there, it did become a whole lot longer after a wash. And this is, guys, this is just why I don't trust superwash, because it just changes so much when it just touches water. Whereas a non-superwash yarn is pretty much the same before and after. It just looks a bit more neat and filled up. Whereas this has just become a completely different shape after I gave it a soak. It wasn't even a proper wash. It laid in the sink for half an hour. And I thought the sleeves were done. They were long, they were loose, they were just not right, but I try to trust my instinct and tell myself that if I just let them dry flat, pull them more out and lengthwise and let them dry that way, it will be fine. And guess what? They're fine. So I think my grandmother will love this, and hopefully she will stop stealing my grandfather's cardigan that he had knitted for him for his birthday, for his 90th. So she can have her own. And yes, the colours are a bit crazy for a woman in her late 80s. But I know my grandmother loves the same sort of purple and burgundy shades that I do, and my mum does. It's a hereditary thing. So I think she will like this. I think this is a colour that she would actually embrace. And I know she will love the yarn. She is, you know, in the older generation where yarn is either just a average superwash or a straight up rustic yarn, and she just associates yarns with being itchy or at least uncomfortable. And this kind of softness that I know those of us in the current knitting community takes as a kind of a granted or default is completely revolutionary to her. As someone who's knitted for decades and decades, she actually isn't that familiar with this kind of yarn, and she's going to be amazed at how soft it is. So yeah, this was just going to be me knitting up some of my superwash sweater quantities because I've kind of found myself not using them anymore. So I was like, okay, if I am now in the non-superwash sweater camp, which I am, I will just get rid of this. And I was this close to destashing it, but when my mom told me about the cardigan that she wanted me to make for my grandmother, and we'd actually already bought some burgundy Quince & Co. Lark yarn, and I realised grandma she can't be trusted with a washing machine anymore. She's getting a little bit funny, so it's best to give her superwash yarn. And I thought, oh, do I have to buy superwash yarn? Wait a minute, I have this yarn in my destash bag. I almost forgot, and it I think it will be perfect for her. I think she'll love it. So I will give this to her when I am in Trondheim at the end of the month. I would love to save it for a Christmas present, but I want to be sure that she gets it at a time where she will be around and know that it came from me, because I really don't know where she's heading, just, you know, that age. And I think she'll love it. She's loved the shawl that I made with 3rd Volt yarn, and I did it in the Spindrift shawl pattern that Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade made. She absolutely loved that shawl and wear it all the time, so I think more superwash merino is apparently her thing, and I'm happy to make that for her. And I'm happy that this thing didn't grow in a way that made it unusable. If anything, it opened up the width between the shoulders, the width of the back, and it actually made the cardigan a great deal longer, which I think she'd also appreciate, because earlier it just kind of stopped at my hips and now it is way longer, so it's perfect. I am actually pretty happy with it. I'm gonna look for buttons either in Scotland or in Trondheim when I'm there and just sew them on, probably on my way to my grandmother's place, because that's kind of how I roll. That was how I rolled when I was giving that baby cardigan to Katie the past weekend, because I hadn't put on the buttons that morning and I sewed them on the train up there. And the last button was attached when I was sat on the very train station. Ah, this is just how I do things, guys. Now I have a little bit of a tale of woe or something. I was going to knit a cardigan for the fiber company. It is a design by Sarah Hatton and it was to be finished by the 1st of September. Have I finished? No. Shame on me. I have some excuses. I mean, one being the heat wave we had, you couldn't really work on anything big, but the other thing is that I've actually been so fortunate to have not one but 2 garments accepted for design publications, and trying to make a living of this, I had to make my priorities. So yes, I did make a priority on the garments I would get published as my own designs rather than knitting someone else's. But that's not to say that I am not going to do my very best to finish this cardigan. And now that it is published as part of the latest collection by the fiber company to celebrate their new yarn lore, you can knit it with me. So how about that? The sun is not working with me today, so we're going to try to do it this way so that the angle is a little bit nicer. But now you can just see more yarn. So how bad is it really? And so this is what I was working on last night. This is one of the sleeves with the longest sleeve cap I have seen in my life, but it's supposed to be long. I've checked it against the actual armhole of the cardigan. So this is what we have. Stitch markers just to indicate the row where I start shaping, so that I will do it the same on the other sleeve. And the other sleeve, a little bit damp, because I thought I'd check if that would change with water as well. Did not, because non-superwash spots. So got 2 sleeves. This one just needs the sleeve cap shaping and it will be done. So I used the colorway of lore called, I think it's called Earth, possibly Earthy, but I think it was Earth. I've just started shaping here, so you can see, but I thought I'd wait until it was a little bit more dry. But yeah, this, I guess you can see, we can compare now the before and after soak look. Try to hold it the same way, that would help. So this is after soak, this is before. I think the soak really makes the texture come to its right. It already looks a bit quite nice, but here it's so even. It pops, it's even. I really like it. It's mostly just a interrupted rib, I think this is called. And this is not a cable pattern, it is not a lace pattern, it is just rib with some slip stitches that you then kind of tuck behind the next stitch coming later. It's really simple. You will remember it after just doing it once or twice, and you can knit this with people, you can knit it anywhere. It's really mindless. It's just that it's not particularly fast, because all the slip stitches means that you will need more rows to work up the length. So that's kind of the main reason why it's taking me a while. I do think it's worth the undertaking, because this is going to be such a cozy wearable cardigan. And guys, the difference between before and after soak, just soak, no Eucalan or soak liquid or anything like that, just water, it makes such a difference. And I look forward to putting this in the actual washer and see how that will transform it, because this yarn just loves being handled and given a bit of a bash to soften up. Obviously not to felt, we do not want to felt our non-superwash. So that is the sleeve progress. I reckon I will be done with the sleeves by the end of the day, and then we just have the body left. I should perhaps clarify here, I was not called in to be a test knitter, they call it a beta knitter. So we are also kind of part of the PR stunt of actually launching this knit, and that's kind of where I failed, because I don't have a finished object photo yet, because it's just not finished. But when it is, I will show you. And like I said, if you now want to cast it on, we can knit it all together, because I think it's a really nice pattern. It's written very condensedly. It's kind of a little bit in the old pattern writing formatting of kind of Rocquaine and that sort of thing. It's not written out row by row in the way, say, Brooklyn Tweed would do, but still it's very accurate. But you may want to have a post-it note at the side of it, just to like have it more spelled out for your size, because it's very compact. Like I can print out the entire thing on a sheet of paper where I squeezed in, I think I had them facing, basically you can put 2 PDF papers onto one actual paper, you know what I mean. So it's very condensed, it's very travel friendly in that sense as well. You can just see the whole pattern with one glance, which is very nice. So here is the body. The body is like, I'm just this far away from the shaping off up here. I'm really not that far off from finishing. It's just that I had to give priority to my own designs, because they have deadlines too. And the last one I'm working on right now, I think it's fine, but I am not happy with it, and that's not okay. Because it's supposed to be, I can tell you this much, it's an oversized yoke. And because it's oversized, I'm getting completely paranoid, because I've never made myself something properly oversized as a yoke. So I'm like, oh no, is it too big? Is it bad? Ah, I'm being ridiculous. So there we are. Hodgson's Joy, which I can never pronounce because that's just how I roll. It is this far. It will block out to be a lot more even. The ribs should open with the block, because that's what it does. This should be a little bit more the same. It's just the different textures that pull a different way before blocking, essentially. So yes, just more of the same stitch pattern. And yeah, that's why it's taking me a while, because it is a lot of slip stitches, and that does take longer, and that's just the nature of it. Don't know what tried to eat my face lately, but it's like everything here looks like I've been trying to grow a second head, and I've just been like chopping it off. You didn't need to know that. Anyway, we have more works in progress. So some of you will remember that I bought this yarn at Fibre East in July. This yarn by Triskelion. This was just after I said, I'm kind of done with superwashed yarn. I'm not really sure that's for me. They grow, I don't like it, yeah. But Amy of the Stranded podcast has been teasing about having a Rocquaine knit along, and Rocquaine is a pattern from PomPom, I believe the autumn issue from 2016, and I really like the fit of it. Everyone I've talked to who have knitted it love it, and I want one for myself. And actually looking at it, although it's made for a non-superwash yarn, I think it looks really nice in a superwash. I've always imagined it would look great in a DK weight superwash blue faced Leicester, so somehow I ended up with a sport weight superwash blue faced Leicester. But that means it actually has a more generous meterage, and looking at it, I don't blame myself for thinking this was DK, because it's really quite plump. So I am just going for it. I think it will all work out, but I am going to give it a soak after this episode to see that it's not going to grow the way some did. I think it will be fine, but you can never be too careful. So it lives in this bag that Ingvild, who, just a tangent, is part of the Lysning band that will perform at the Bergen Knitting Festival. This is the bag that she sewed me, because she also sews bags, and she also is part of a knitting podcast. Amazing. Anyway, this is the bag she made me. She did sell these out immediately after posting them up online, but I'm sure she'll make more because they're beautiful. And in here we have Rocquaine. I don't know when this happened. This is knitted itself. It's so much fun to knit because you get to provisionally cast on and get straight into the stockinette. So while you still have that initial cast on mojo, you get the stockinette out of the way. And then when you want a bit of variety, that is when you get to start the texture. And texture is of course really hard to see when you got dark yarn, but luckily dark yarn blows out the camera. So you can see it anyway. So you can see it's getting quite see-through here. So this is why I'd like to give it a soak to see if this is going to be a problem. But I am almost up to the neckline shaping now. It's gone really fast. Would highly recommend this for someone who wants something to be a little bit instant gratification for sure. So the armhole is happening here. I'm growing up the front now. So yeah, it's happening. It's happening really fast. But I've had to put it aside in favor of both this cardigan and Hodgson's Joy. This our hat and cardigan. Fiber company thing. But yes, I am putting a bit of dent in this whenever I can. But it's not as much of a social knit just because of the nature of the texture stitch that you have to work from both the front and the back, and from the back it's harder to see, especially if you work with a yarn that is a deep dark blue the way this is. It's so dark it could be mistaken for black, but it has a hint of blue in it. I will report when I made more progress on this, but yes, I am taking part in the Rocquaine Knit Along that Amy of the Stranded Knitting podcast is hosting. Oh, just looking at my table of stuff now, I just found the scrap yarn for this cardigan. The yarn that was left after binding off the last bit, the neckline. This is how much I had left. It's quite satisfying when you actually used up an entire sweater quantity and you're not even left with a skein. But it's also kind of risky when this is all you have left. Like there's a little bit of a leftover here. This is 2 leftovers, I think 1 from each sleeve, and so this is the leftover from the yarn. This is the skein that was a little bit more blue than the others. I didn't even feel like I was playing yarn chicken with it. It did seem like it was just, it just fit. Yeah. Now I was really done talking about this thing, but I do want to talk a little bit more about where I got the pattern from. So we're jumping a little bit back and forth here now because my memory is working that way. So yeah. I got the pattern from this book. I want to talk about it again because I saw it picked up on the Grocery Girls podcast and I was kind of like, I have so many things to say about this book. So yes, I've talked about it before. Here, my face. I have talked about it before, both when I purchased it and both when I cast this on, and I have a lot of good things to say about it. First of all, this is a Elizabeth Dorothy book where she has introduced a slightly different way of doing the short row set in sleeve cap that you work top down. So you can knit the cardigan either bottom up the way some say Kate Davies does, or top down the way maybe Andy Sutherland does, and then you work up the sleeve top down regardless. And usually when you do the Barbara G. Walker way, where you start under the arm, pick up stitches all the way around, and then you go back up and you work short rows back and forth, and it's quite uniform. You just kind of get an oval. It works, it's nice, but this method works the same way, but it's way more tailored. So yes, you pick up stitches, but you start up here picking them up, which I already felt worked so much nicer because you then get to pick up a more kind of dense collection of stitches here, then fewer along here, then quite, I think, more here, and then you pick up the number that you would have cast off here or bound or cast on if you're doing top down, which I did, and then fewer up here, and then you're back here and you do the short rows, and that means you will have a shape that mimics more of the kind of traditional sleeve cap, such as this one. So this is actually a really nice comparison to have because you can see how it works here. It's quite rapid in the decreases up here. Then it gets more shallow and you do it fewer rounds. I think it's like you go from every row to every other or every fourth. Like it's just, you do it more rarely so that you get this more tailored shape. And that is what Elizabeth Dorothy has managed to work in here with the short row method that is completely seamless. Because I gotta admit, I'm not too excited to seam in this thing, although it is a skill I look forward to acquire because it's about time, really. So I just thought that's really clever, and she talks about how the different shapes of the armhole will affect the shape of the garment. So here's a bit of an illustration of how you can see it's more of an oval and more of a circle, and how that works for maybe say a no ease to a positive ease garment, for instance. There's a lot of stuff in that about that in here. I can't talk today. What else is new? So yeah, it has like this big chunk of the method of the tailoring, the making it fit, And so the only issues I will have had with fit in this cardigan is actually completely down to me and the lack of opportunities to actually measure my grandmother, because she's in Norway, and all my mom did was sending me measurements for a cardigan she had, and she didn't even measure it in a way that was useful to me. So, but this book is really helpful if you want to measure yourself or someone you have around. It also has a section in the very back of the book where you can modify things. I hope to see more of this kind of short row construction in the future. I will look forward to also try to put that into other designers' designs that I will be knitting for myself or others, to see if I can modify. So maybe I will do, oh, I have so many, you know, Andy Satterlund and Kate Davies cardigans that I do want to do, and I want to have a go at that and see if they don't already incorporate this by now. Then I want to see if I can do that and make it work. I think it's really interesting and it fits really well. I feel very mobile. I can move my arm the way you do in any other garment that you get from the shop or whatever. I mean, in a good way. So yeah, I think it's great. The pattern I knitted is photographed. I'm just gonna find it. This is the sans serif. It's supposed to be done in Quinns & Co. Lark, which was the yarn I did buy in Burgundy, but in the end I found that this yarn would fit my grandmother better. But that does mean I could do it for myself. So I think that is all I have to say for this book. It's a great book if you want to do top-down seamless knitting that is well tailored, because sometimes it does feel like you kind of have to choose between a well-tailored design like an old Rowan pattern and the more fun to knit and bit straightforward construction of a more modern Ravelry pattern that may not be as well tailored. I think this book kind of tells you how you can get both. And there is the hospital ambulance. Hello, glad you're saving lives. I just wish you could do it more quietly. Now I have one last cheeky cast on. You will remember this yarn I showed you that was sent to me by Hobium, which is a Turkish yarn shop. They sent me a pile of recycled yarn, but they also sent me more of the Lamia natural wools that they have sent to me previously. And I absolutely adore this yarn. It's very affordable and pure wool. And it feels just really good to knit with. So I kicked up one of the skeins to do a little bit of rib. And the reason why I did is because I've knitted a bunch of sweaters for others. Now I knitted a cardigan for my grandmother. I knitted, I think, 2 sweaters for my mum. I knitted 1 or 2 for my sister. I knitted one for my friend Stina, one for my friend Christy. Really, the only friend left who needs a jumper is Ingrid. I would argue that Hova needs a jumper too, which I kind of knitted for him. I just never finished it because I couldn't sew on the sleeves and do the sleeve cap, which I guess now I can return to that. But me and Ingrid have been friends for 20 years. He deserves a sweater. And yes, is he knit worthy? Depends. He is not very knit worthy if you knit him something he doesn't want to use. He can be quite particular about that. So I have made sure that he wants this. I've already asked him, this is the yarn, it is soft, it has this color, it is a natural beigey color, but it's quite cool. This is the design I want to make you, do you want it? Here are some other options. And he was like, yes, I like it, I would love it. He used the heart eye emoji, so you know it's true, it's not just being polite. So I have now tried to bully him into measuring himself, because he is a good deal slimmer than me, and this is actually what would be a good size for me. But the pattern does suggest that size for him, which seems odd, and I'm now looking at it. It does seem rather big. This could fit me and then some. It's 2 inches beyond my measurements, and it's a second to smaller size, and I'm now wondering, should I perhaps knit in the smallest size? There's no way of answering that until he's actually gotten around to measuring himself. I don't know how hard it is to just get freaking bust measurement. It's not called bust with men, chest measurement. So yeah, what I would really like to have is like sculptures, the complete just sculptures of all my friends, anything from their foot size to their hand size to any garment I could possibly knit for them, so that I just know their measurements. Why can't I have that? Why can't they just give me statues of themselves for me? That would be great, and just update them whenever they've like gained weight or, you know, had a very big lunch or that kind of thing. It's a hint for a Christmas present, friends. Please don't take me seriously. Anyway, this might get the frogs. That's why I'm not really counting it as a new project, but I'm sure you're curious what it is nonetheless. This is the Auster, I can't pronounce it, Auster sweater by Michele Wang. I do think she has a female and a male version for these. This is obviously the male version. It's a straight up sweater, knitted pieces. It might get the frog. It does seem very, very big. And I really do want my friend to wear this because he is so knit worthy once I've actually made him something he likes. Like I made him these Værbitt mittens years ago and they weren't even in very nice yarn, and I actually ran out of the yarn. The hand used bleached white, but the last thumb had unbleached white, and you can only see it in bright snow daylight and it just looks wrong. But he loves it. So yeah, once I've knitted him something that he likes, like the Værbitt socks he also got about 2 years ago. So I just need to make sure that it's right. That's the only way forward. He's not going to wear something that doesn't turn out right. But that's the story there. Now I have some acquisitions, 2 of which I forgot to talk about last week. Can you blame me? There were a lot of acquisitions there. I went a little bit crazy, so I am going to go through the ones I forgot plus one that arrived in my mailbox this week. One you have probably heard about is PomPom's autumn issue this year. What's it called? The Moon issue, in case there was any doubt. It's hit the internet and the knitting world by storm, whatever you say. I can't talk today. It's been very, very popular, and it actually ran out. They have to print more issues already. It's been quite the hit, and it's probably mostly to blame for the sweater on the front. I mean, it's amazing. It does kind of like I remember when they had a mood board out for this issue, and I considered sending in something, and what I had in mind was a color work yoke with moons that basically do this. But beyond that, I had no ideas, and I could never ever come up with something as intricate and all over the garment the way she's done. This design is incredible. I'm impressed, in case you can't tell. So that's one of the many designs in here. It looks like Melody Berg's got a hat in here, which is really nice. And some matching mitts. This brioche sweater though, I think it's brioche. My goodness, I would love to have a go at that with the Nathan Taylor one pass brioche method. I don't have time to knit all these things. I don't even have time for that Michele Wang sweater. What am I doing? Oh, finish something, Ellie, just finish. I am sure you've seen this sweater as well, but it doesn't hurt repeating. And I absolutely, absolutely love the both age and race diversity in this book. Yeah, definitely love that. I love the colours used. They're so metallic. PomPom ticked a lot of boxes with this. I mean, don't you want to make that? I want that. And there is some marling in this issue. And marling, in case you don't know, is a kind of yeah, and a molds method, and I do know she has an article in here as well. None of the designs are by her, so I just thought it would be more worth mentioning in case you've been curious about Marile. And here is a shawl with some star thingy things on. There's probably more in here that I didn't cover, but I'm sure you have heard about this at great length already. It's really nice. The autumn issues of PomPom are always my favorites, so yeah. That's like every time PomPom comes out, I'm a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I like this one. Don't know if I want to make anything of that. And then give it a month, and I love that very same issue. But with the autumn issue, I love them right away. They're always really good. So that was my little PomPom plug. I am a subscriber. That's why I got it as soon as I came back from Germany. It was already here, and that's really nice. Although it was a little bit frustrating because I actually saw the PomPom magazine in the Rauwerk shop in Munich, and I realized I didn't really talk much about that shop in that episode. So let me just give it a little bit of a spotlight here. So I got a bunch of Christine's yarn when I was there. We made sure that I could come to the shop while she was still working there, because she does usually run it from Brighton, but it is in Munich, aka München, and I got to see all the yarn in there. And of all the yarn shops I have been to in my life, this is one of those very few that is exactly how I would do a yarn shop. There is no superwash yarn in the entire shop, and I'm saying that like I'm not a superwash hater. Some people seem to think I am because I'm always talking about non-superwash, but you can imagine how happy it makes me when I find a yarn shop that has just non-superwash, and it's all the kind of yarns that I love, being the Ravak yarn in itself, being Jameson Smith yarn, blacker yarns. Oh, there were so many good things, and I kind of regret not picking up any sunlight yarn because apparently that yarn is coming to an end already. And yeah, there were lots of great publications there. There were Pom Pom, there were Morale. Yeah, that shop was right up my alley. So well done, Christine, you made a brilliant shop. And if you ever are in Munich and you are going to go yarn shopping, then definitely go to that yarn shop. It's really good. Just to have mentioned that, because that, yeah, I love that shop. So one more Aquisitions. Well, actually there is another one, but one more from last week that I didn't get around to talk about is Handywoman by Kate Davies. Now, arguably this is not a knitting book, but yes, Kate Davies is, of course, as we all know, one of my favorite knitting pattern designers. And she was already designing, I believe, some knitting before she had a stroke. And after that stroke, she didn't really continue with her academic career. You can see how this all resonates with me. And pursued her knitting design career more. And this book talks about that journey, and it talks a lot about having had a stroke, having become essentially disabled, and it discusses disability in a way that I can only applaud. I haven't actually read this book yet, but you know, I am a reader of Kate Davies' blog and I know kind of where she's coming from. I've attended one of her talks. I've read the blurb. I am savoring this book. I'm really looking forward to read it, to read her story. I'm going to read the back of the book for you now, so you know a little bit. So, paralyzed by a stroke at the age of 36, Kate Davies' world turned upside down. Forced to change direction, Kate took a radical new creative path. Handywoman tells this story. That was the big text. Small text. Handywoman is not a book about Kate Davies' triumph over adversity. Rather, it is her account of the ordinary activities and everyday objects the stroke and disability made her see differently. From braiding hair for the first time to learning how to knit again, from the lessons of a working class creative childhood to the support of the contemporary knitting community, from the transformative effects of good design to developing a new identity as a disabled walker. In this engaging series of essays, Kate Davies describes how the experience of brain injury allowed her to build a new kind of handmade life. Part memoir, part personal celebration of the power of making, in Handywoman, Kate redefines disability as in itself a form of practical creativity. They're like angel choirs singing in my head right now, in case you couldn't hear them. It's everything. I have really paid a lot of mental energy to issues of disability lately, because it's really something that you don't really think about unless you have to think about it, and it seems a little bit unfair. And so this book has come at the right time in my life to read about, and I'm just very thrilled to have that. Now granted, I haven't even read the autobiography of my favorite musician that I've had for years, so I'm not sure when I will sit down to read it, but I hope it won't be in that as long as it took with the other books. I haven't read that yet. It does have a little bit of text in the flap as well, so I'm going to read you the flap text. This is a little bit. Handywoman is about what it means to knit a sweater, about the idea of walking when one finds oneself in a body that no longer walks, about learning how to dance when half of your body barely moves at all, about just how difficult it is to accept the self after major physical change, about love and friendship, about a dog, about finding oneself as a maker among an incredible group of makers, about hands, about the brain, about hair and identity, about extraordinary tools and objects, about life not turning out quite as you expected, about working towards a better life precisely because of its unexpected nature, about understanding limitations as a creative resource rather than as an impediment. Handywoman is about hearing a poem that chimes so strongly with your own experiences that it seems to speak to you directly. It's about finding a sense of place and purpose among some remarkable women and their remarkable islands. It's about living life creatively and being supported by an extraordinary creative community. And it's about thinking about how good design might contribute to the development of a more inclusive and more human public sphere. So that kind of touches upon what I was saying about just having put a lot of thought into disability, even if you don't have to, even if you don't have a disability. It's probably something we could all think about and not just leave that to those who have it. Yeah. Anyway, there's a last little bit of text to just tell you who Kate Davies is if you don't already know. Kate Davies is an award-winning knitwear designer and author, writing on many topics from disability and design to textile history and women's history. She has published 9 books about hand knitting, lives on the edge of the Scottish Highlands, and is inspired by her local landscape every day. I think that about sums it up. So this book, I mean, I cannot really recommend it yet because I haven't read it, but as far as I can recommend it, I totally do. And it does remind me that I promised you guys to review her knitting publications in bulk, and this will obviously not be part of that because it is not a knitting publication, but she does have a bunch of collections, anything from Colours of Shetland to Yokes to the Highland Way that came out recently, West Highland Way I believe. I will have to do a proper sit down and go through them and prepare a bit for that, so I don't know when that will happen, but I am still thinking about it. So if that's something you're interested in, then yes, that will happen. Spoiler though, I do love each and every publication of hers, but there are some I love more than others, and I thought I'd cover why and just show you kind of maybe the journey she's been through as a designer as well. I don't know. It's probably just going to be a bunch of gushing, but if you're in for that, then, you know, let's do that. Last acquisition I got from a viewer. So she sent me a bunny card and a bag that she made. It's so cute. Look at the little sheep pals. Look at them. Oh, I am so thrilled about this. And it's got a boxed bottom. Love a good boxed bottom, and I'm always impressed by people who can do them. So I'm trying. Love a good drawstring, and look at the drawstrings themselves. It's got a moose and gingerbread man. So it's so weirdly festive, while not being festive at all, and I kind of like that. It's got a cheeky bit of festiveness that I could still use the rest of the year, but it will kind of amplify the festiveness during the festive season, which will probably come sooner than we are prepared for, as it always does. But I'm not going to talk about that in September, don't worry. So thank you so much, Anna, who sent me this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love it, absolutely love it. I look forward to have a project to put that in. It might be that Michele Wang project, because I mean I will only be knitting one piece at a time, so it should fit, but you know, gotta make Ingard measure himself first. So I don't really have much else to share with you today. My tea's gone cold. I need to do some boring work. I need to prepare for the kind of me becoming a student for 2 days kind of thing that's happening this week. I need to prepare more for the class that I'll be teaching at Perth, and pack. I guess I'm going away again. As soon as I've recovered, I'm like, okay, picking up our things again and off we go. I'm gonna take the train, so it's gonna be lots of knitting time. I look forward to seeing my friends, and it'll be good. So maybe there will be a travel vlog, I'm not sure. I'm a little bit vlogged out, but we'll see, So thank you all so much for watching, and I will, if not see you next week, the week after, depending on when I will have time to podcast. You know the drill. So thank you for watching. Bye. Oh, little bit of bonus content for those of you who are still here. I forgot one thing from Aquisitions that I am picking up today, and I don't know what's wrong with me, but it's a knitting machine.